Hey there guys, how's it going? And welcome back. So jumping right into it, today we're going to be doing the blade of this Branchwych, and as you can see, it's not going to be the usual blue colour, I'm going for a purple colour this time. So I've started off by base coating it with Nagaroth Night, which I've got at the top of the palette here, and the other purples and pink we're going to use is Xurius Purple, Genestealer Purple, and Fulgrim Pink, so in order there. And so once I base coat it, what I'm going to do is start applying a highlight, the beginning of the highlight, and I'm going to do that with a Xurius Purple, sorry. So I'm going to get some here. I'm going to water it down, not too much, we don't need to create a glaze of this. So what I'm going to do is just pick out the areas that I want to shine in. As you can see there, the light is picking up this inside curve, the angle, and I want to pick out that starting from about here. And not going all the way to the end, but you can go a good distance. And whilst that's drying, I'm gonna highlight a couple more areas. So what I'm gonna do is this little bit here, just to give us a nice gentle glow later on. I'm also going to get just the upper area of this. Of course, you'll want to repeat this on the other side. And by the time I've done that, this bit's here dry. So what I'm going to do is actually do a couple. I'm going to do the end on the other side of the blade, just to get a bit of a contrast. So hitting the areas we didn't hit on the inside curve. And now that this first area we did is dry, I'm going to come back to that. Just strengthen that layer and build up to a nice strong coat. And I'm going to do that with the rest of the pieces, and then we'll move on to the next step. So once those are blocked in, what I'm going to do is go back to our base coat of Nagaroth Night. I'm going to make a glaze of this. So as I've shown you in previous videos, how to make a glaze. In fact, we think we've got a whole video on the glazing, the different applications you can do. But what I'm going to do is take that and just build up a nice transition between the area we've just based and the actual base coat. So just gently applying multiple layers towards the shadow as we're using the shadow color. Now what we're doing at the moment is all the little inset patterns and details there on the sculpt, we're leaving them the darker color. So we want to make sure they stay a Nagaroth Night. So thin layers, wait for each one to dry, and then come back and apply another one. But just giving a little bit more space than the last time. And it'll take a couple of applications of this to get a nice gradient, but it'll be worth it in the end. And once you're happy with that, we will move on to the next part of the highlight. So this next part I'm using Gene Stealer Purple. As usual, just going to take a little bit to the side, thin it down. That should be all right. And this time we're going to pick out the center of the areas we've picked out before. This time moving a little bit closer in towards the center. That's quite a thin consistency I've got here. It's hard to hold this comfortably. So again, it's another case of gradually building up the layers till you get a fairly good solid coverage. Once that is done and it's all dry, what we want to do is go back to our Sirius Purple. And this time we want to create a glaze, so just like we did with the Nagaroth Knight. And then, very carefully, making sure you don't go all the way down to Nagaroth Knight. We want to just build up the transition from Xurius, from Gene Stealer to Xurius even. Just thin layers, gradually getting closer to the origin. You can stipple as well. Stippling can be a great way to build up a nice looking transition. But if you're going to be painting, make sure you always drag the brush towards the darker colour if you're using the darker colour to glaze, or the lighter colour if you're using the lighter colour to glaze. So again, this is just going to be back and forth. Until I'm happy, and I'll see you when that is the case. I've glazed in the transitions, and I am happy with them. And so what I'm going to do now, before we move on to the next stage, is a little bit of a interesting way to bulk up the shadows, really. So I've got some dark Prussian blue here on my palette at the bottom. And what I'm going to make is a nice thin glaze. What I'm going to do is glaze this into, let's try on this side of the blade, into the darkest part of the shadow. And that blue will really, really help make the shadow have an intensity to it that I think will overall help the whole piece just look that little bit better. Now, you don't want too much, but that will be a nice little something you can add before we move on. So only in the darkest parts. You don't need to do it everywhere. But it might help give us some contrast against the brighter areas. As well, like I said, it'll richen up these shadows. So, just a nice little interesting bit, and then we'll move on to the next part. So this next bit isn't directly moving on to the next highlight. This is going to be some edge highlighting. So I'm taking our Genestealer purple, which is currently the highest or the brightest highlight we've got. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to start picking out the edges of the blade. So starting at just the central point of our highlight, just dragging it outwards, using the edge of the brush. I'm going to do it on this side as well. This will just help unify things, and it'll help bring out the shape a bit more, add a bit more brightness. So just going around, doing all of this. As I said, it's quite an awkward model to hold for filming. But another thing you can do is pick out this central line of the blade. So the area where there's an internal curve and an external curve. Now this is where you want to be as neat as possible. It's going to be quite tough doing this whilst filming. But you want to just gently pick out the central line. Just gently does it. The line kind of tapers off, so you can do that too. So I'm just going to make it reach this little highlight. And then what I'm going to do is edge highlight all the little runic details and all around the blade some more, and I'll show you that. So I've gone and done all the edge highlighting, and it's looking all right. And the next and final step is the last highlight, or almost. So this is Fulgrim pink, as I said in the beginning. And I'm thinning it down. It's already quite a thin paint, but now, as we did before with the other layers, what I'm going to do is just in the middle, with this one I'm just almost like a glaze. Just going to gently drag it in to the very center. So once I've done this, what I'm going to do is gently glaze over that. So I'll show you in the next step. Now that that's dry, we're going to go back to glazing. So this time back to the previous highlight, which is Gene Stealer Purple. Going to create a glaze of that. Once again, just gently going over it. You can even, if you really want to dull it down, you can even glaze over the entire highlight. And finally, I'm going to take our full grain pink. I'm going to do some more edge highlighting, but this time very selectively so. So we're not going to cover the whole piece like we did before. What I'm going to do is just try and almost blend it in to where the sharpest points are. that glow we've created. That shine is the brightest. Another thing you can do is on the very tips of things, you can also add a little point of light on them. Just to give that extra little piece of light. I think that's looking pretty cool. Now, of course, you can brighten this up, add a wider shine. You can add more layers, more everything. You can completely approach this how you want to. But at the end of the day, it is your painting, so as long as you are happy, that is a sign you're doing something right. Another little point you can do is I've got some hexed lichen here from Game Air. And what I'll do is I'll just put a little bit down at the bottom of the palette and thin it down. It's quite a thin paint already, but it's got a really nice richness to it. And you can go over any areas you fancy, and so for example the edge highlights I've got here in the little spot, and what this will do is just add that richness, that deep purple over the whole thing. And so if I water that even down even a little bit more, what I can do is I can glaze that over the areas we've done, if I feel they're too pink, too bright, or whatever. And I'll just help normalize all that work we've done and create a deeper, richer purple. And again, some more glazes of the dark Prussian blue. Once again, just to add little points of interest. Another thing you can do is take some white. This is just cold white from Vallejo. Now you want to be extremely, extremely sparing with the white. White's never something you want to go all in for, just because it is such a stark effect it gives. So what I'm going to do here is just a little dot right there, I'm going to do it on the upper highlight as well. I'll just give some little point lights, some little areas of shine that I think are quite cool. And you can work over any mistakes, any areas you're not happy with, and it can look pretty cool. So yeah, thank you for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed this, and hopefully you give it a try yourself. So yeah, any questions, feel free to ask. Any comments or anything you wanna check on, go for it, and thanks for watching, guys.